Once again, Mumbai has woken up to the second day of the monsoon with light drizzling, which is expected to only intensify by the end of the day. The southwest monsoon made its earliest ever onset over the city, beating records that go back more than 7 decades. In fact, since 2009, the rains didn't just make a mark or a seasonal shift. They shattered pretty much multiple standing records, soaked the city streets and sent civic agencies pretty much scrambling because of its early onset. In fact, some parts of the city have recorded 200 millimeter of rainfall between Sunday midnight and Monday afternoon. The Indian Met Department upgraded its forecast to a red alert warning of heavy rainfall with thunderstorms and gusty winds in Mumbai, as well as the neighboring districts of Thane, Raigad and Ratnagiri. And yeah, with that, it's been raining gains on equity markets too.
You know, the pictures what you just spoke about right now, it is a familiar scene. It's just that it's happened in the month of May instead of June and July.
Yeah, totally. I don't know what's going to happen when the official time period of monsoon actually comes, which is June and July.
You know, it is actually appalling. In the early morning commute to office, I actually saw two trees which were actually uprooted.
Yeah.
The footage that Mumbai Metro already has got clocked. By the way, it's called Aqua Line.
Yeah.
And the water is already clogged in the so-called Aqua Line. So it's living to the spirit of Aqua Line.
Yeah, there you have those visuals of the metro station.
Yeah, you know, we'll talk about the impact of monsoon and what it means for inflation, etc., etc. But you start your morning and it's a wet morning from Mumbai. So whichever part of the world you are in, it's hello from a wet morning in Mumbai. And by the way, it's not only Mumbai. I mean, raining, it's pretty much raining. The downpour has been pretty widespread this time, whether it is Delhi, whether it is Mumbai, whether it is, you know, other parts of India. So, you know, monsoons have arrived, and unlike that whole pattern where it would start from Kerala, then move to Mumbai and then move to other parts of India, this year I think it's just been a flood of rain everywhere. But markets, and what do we have there? You won't exactly say that it was a very rara kind of in session for markets yesterday, and the Nifty is indicating that we could be in for a very flat kind of in start. This market for sure in my book now is lacking what could be called as a strong bent or a strong push of momentum. FII selling has reduced, sectoral rotation now seems to be narrowing down, and the market clearly seems to be lacking any kind of a trigger. So markets are holding on. Markets have not reversed, but for markets to move higher now, you got to ask yourself, what is the big trigger? And that is where I think the markets right now are struggling to find the next big trigger. Earning is over. Globally, you know which way the tariff template is going to move. Inflation is coming under control, and accepting bond yield, which frankly is not a very, this is just a niggling worry. It's not like something which is going to have a selling stampede on Wall Street. I guess the terrain for equity market is not looking bad. It is not looking exciting, but we could clearly slip into what could be called as sideways consolidation with a positive bias.
Right, okay, that's the texture of the market right now. Just the fact that there was a buy figure from FIIs, minuscule as it may be, but it was a buy nonetheless. And of course, you know, the DI cushion for the markets continues. But yeah, the monsoon implications, or I should say such an early monsoon implications, and we've been debating and discussing that, other than of course the agricultural impact, what happens to, you know, the power demand, what happens to, you know, some of these consumer good companies, the fact that, you know, Symphony, etc. had such blowout set of numbers because it was an elongated and extensive summer that you had, all that gets also undone.
I mean, you keep the impact of ice cream, cold drink, AC, fridge, cooler, fan, pankha. Minus that, monsoons coming early is never bad news. However, more than the month of June, I think it is always the month of July which is more important, because that's the time when the rainfall distribution, I think, would be important. So it's been, nobody was able to predict the early arrival of monsoon, at least in the month of April. Now this early arrival of monsoon, could this have impact in terms of how the rainfall distribution would move in the month of June and July? It's difficult to fathom. But the monsoon arrival early means that there would be no drop in reservoir levels. at least the number of, if the drop in reservoir level is not there, so area under irrigation this time would be very richly water fed, and the crop season this time may just start early in terms of an irrigation, in terms of an impact, and which surely will have an impact on the seasonal inflation going forward. So you keep those categories aside, okay, refrigeration demand and air conditioning demand and ice cream demand and cold drink demand, you know, all those categories, small categories in the overall scheme of things. Barring that, I really don't see too much of, you know, impact per se. What you don't want to see is that you don't want to see a change in weather pattern where this is it and then the rainfall distribution gets challenged in the month of June and July. But monsoon coming early, reservoir levels going higher, impact on inflation, impact on irrigation, all that theoretically on paper you can say is actually good news.
Okay, in the meantime, there's the F&O expiry framework as well, which got issued last evening. SEBI has issued the final directions to exchanges now. They've allowed the expiry on either Tuesday or Thursday. What's allowed, of course, is that one weekly index option or contract per exchange, and all other contracts are going to have a minimum of 1 month tenor. Other expiries are going to happen in the last of the month. Exchanges now need the SEBI nod, and they're going to be changing the current expiry days. So after a lot of back and forth, finally they get to pick either a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Yeah, so frankly, from a viewer standpoint, we need to just put facts on the table that it's almost status quo. And this means that there would be monthly expiry, there would be weekly expiry, and each exchange can choose one day in terms of the weekly expiry. And this is how the current process of the current F&O framework seems to be moving. Of course, there is a time window in which the exchanges can go and appeal, or they can come up with a counter view, or they can get in touch with the regulator. But looking at the news or the information which has come from SEBI last evening, frankly from a market standpoint, nothing changes. Also, the whole fear that, okay, could this have impact on BSE volumes? Could this have impact on brokerage volumes? The answer to that is no, because if it is status quo, the impact which in a sense had to happen has already happened. This also means that since everybody will have to choose from one weekly expiry, the entire so-called sattebaji which was happening in the entire F&O, especially the call and the put segment, that also reduces dramatically. So nothing changes in terms of giving more, fuel to the fire to what is happening in the entire F&O market at the retail level. It is status quo, and I will not be surprised that this news in a sense will have impact, or BSE, which is the only listed one today, could see an impact. For brokerages also, you may see mild reaction, especially those discount brokerages where you pretty much know that the impact of volume is going to be minuscule now.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.